I'm Gerry Boltz,
Gerry, how old are you?
94.
I understand before 1970 you knew someone and perhaps were related to someone who I'm interested in finding out more about. Is that his name is Armor Bordner? What can you tell me about Armor?
Armor Bordner, he was a retired school teacher. He taught school in the Independent Borough, and he was also the, should I call him, the shop man, taught the young fellows how to work with tools and so forth. And Armor, when he retired, he opened a store at 20th and Hill Streets, and he was there for quite some time. Of course, in the interim, he had purchased 500 acres of ground behind the first mountain, going towards, or through, should I say, Swatara Gap. And he used some of his young school students to build his cottage. He built it very rustically, and Armor's wife and he lived back there for quite a few years. It was very rustic. What was really nice about the place, there was a water, or a stream coming down the mountain, and there was quite a cascade of water, and he put up a water wheel there, which was very, very picturesque. And you could go back there when it would be 90, 95 degrees in the Lebanon area, and back in Armor's place it'd be in the mid-70s because of the cool air generated by the water coming down the mountain. Armor operated his store for quite some time. I used to sell firewood through Armor's store with 500 acres in the Swatara, Monroe Valley, I guess I should say. He had quite a lot of wood, and I'd go back there in my spare time and cut down trees and so forth that he didn't want around, and would stack it to dry out. And then when we found out through the store someone who wanted firewood, a cord of firewood, load up Armor's truck, and we sell a cord of firewood for $20. When I think about it, the amount of time spent to cut the amount of firewood today, you never get by with anywhere close to $20. You know,
It's true.
employed by Bethlehem Steel.
Okay. And what did you do at Bethlehem Steel?
Well, I started in 1939, and I advanced through the puddle mill, as it was known, as a clerk. And after 3 weeks in the plant, I was brought into the office and put into the accounting department. And subsequently, I became chief of payroll when the chief of, prior to that, of course, the chief of payroll had passed away, and I was made chief of payroll. In 1954, when data processing began to become quite common, I went to school and also became chief of data processing for the Lebanon plant. So those were my two things. And subsequently then, of course, 1970, I was transferred to Steelton plant. I had great hopes of being transferred to Burns Harbor, which was the larger, latest steel plant as far as Bethlehem Steel was concerned. But it was 41 years I've had with Bethlehem Steel.
Wow. Well, what is your favorite memory of the Bordner Cabin?
the rusticness of it, the location of it, remote. Now I'm saying this maybe out of line, but I don't think Armor's wife, Peg, really liked living back there because it was too remote for her. And someone may contradict me on that. That's fine. But I used to spend, as I said, quite a bit of time back there cutting things and clearing the logs that or the trees that he wanted to cut for firewood.
How long did it take to build the cabin?
That is more than I can truthfully say, because I was not there fully with the time he was spent. Excuse me. I think there were 3 or 4 young students that he had, whether they were employed by him or just training. I do not know that, but it was that crew that built the cabin according to Armor's plans that he had on hand.
And how about the stone? Did they cut the stone, or did they hire somebody to cut the stone for the fireplace?
No, I was not in on that. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I would say with the amount of stones that are around there, they were probably picked up by what do you call him, mason, and used to build the fireplace. I cannot truthfully say, but we know stones were built in the fireplace. But
sure, and there's a lot of stones just across Rattling Run, an awful lot of large stones.
yes,
That
now,
they could have gathered those rather easily.
there were the as I mentioned, there's a side porch where the water wheel was, and that water wheel, or the amount of water coming down the mountain, was very swift. And as I said, difference in degrees from inside in Lebanon and out there. I think, well, I was not around at that time, but I know there was possibly in the 70s, when everyone else suffered from water in the early 70s, that the water wheel may have been demolished by the cascading water coming down the mountain.
You're talking about Agnes flood in 72. Do you know, did he make electricity with that wheel?
No, not as far as I know.
So it was completely decorative.
I'd say so.
Okay.
If he did on a generator, I'm not aware.
So he had 3 boys. Do you remember any of their names?
I can picture them, but I can't come up with the names.
Do you have any pictures of these young men working, or?
No. Say again, please.
What kind of car did Armor drive? The garage is so small.
If I recall, he used to have a Jeep, a truck. And he used that, and that's what we used to haul the firewood.
Okay. And how much time did he spend back there? Now, when he was teaching, did he live there, or after he retired?
He also lived on Tunnel Hill Road.
I can back you up on Tunnel Hill Road because I did some research and saw where he actually drew plans for a small development on Tunnel Hill Road.
There were several homes there that finally, was built up. But
did he build, at Pansy Hill, did he build that grocery store, or was it already there when he had his store?
there again, as much as I traveled that area coming back when I lived in Tunnel Hill Road, I wish I knew when he did open that store.
How about Linda, his daughter? Do you remember Linda?
Yes, Gerhardt.
What can you tell me about her?
I thought she was a very pretty girl.
Does Armor have any brothers and sisters?
Not to know. Armor was born in 1904. It was Armor J. His wife was Margaret M. Oliver, who was born in 1912, but date of her passing is not listed. He was the son of Harvey and Stella Darkus. That was Harvey Bordner and Stella Darkness. He was a teacher and storekeeper, it says here, near Lebanon PA. and he had one daughter, Linda Kay, who married a young man by the name of Gerhardt.
Okay. That's very informative. Thank you. What else would you be able to tell me about Armor Bordner? Anything special that I haven't asked?
No, in his shop classes at Harrison School at 7th and Maple Street, he was a very energetic individual in getting the projects that he assigned to the various boys getting finished and so forth. Yes, Armor and I got along quite well.
Good. I know I met him one time. Do you remember Earl Libby with the Historical Society, the president? Big man. Had the feed mill, Earl Libby.
Was he associated with what Libby's plaster on 7th Street?
He was on 7th Street, yes.
That was at 7th and the railroad.
Yes.
Yes.
Along the Union Canal, that sort of thing.
That's where the Union Canal came through.
Yes. Well, he had taken me to visit Armor one time while he was still living in that cabin. And I acquired some pictures from the Lebanon Daily News after he had passed. And we put a new roof on it and got a lease for it for the Swatara Watershed Association. So we're trying to research a lot about the cabin and Armor. We'd like to get historic status on it at some point. They took out the windows and doors.
Yes, I cannot see that. It's going to rain in and it's going to rot away.
And we're working on trying to preserve it. So I hope that meets with your approval.
Well, I hope that somehow they can stop any water from coming into the building. That definitely would be my main aim in doing anything there.
Yes, it has a large overhang which does a good job of keeping the water back. We have to replace the pier under the porch on the side. It washed away. To make it safe, we had to put on a new pier, but we're waiting on permits from DEP. Labor and Industry finally gave us a permit. Now we need a general permit or something from the Department of Environmental Protection.
If I have a question, when was it washed away?
We don't know exactly.
Was it due to that heavy flood that took the water wheel?
From 72, I hope it wasn't that long, because that's, my goodness, that's 40 years or something. And I'm thinking it was more recent than that, but I really don't know when it washed away.
Yes, it'd be a shame for that place to go. Of course, they did take away, I think, if I recall, there was a garage there, another building at the one time. Last time I was there, I could not even find where that building had been. Vividly in my memory, I can recall when I used to go over there, that where his garage had been.
Yes, there was a big workshop there.
Yes.
And that was taken down by the state park before we got the lease for the cabin. So they took that down. There's a big flat area beside the cabin, and that is where that stood. You said something about Bordnersville?
Bordnersville was a little community. In fact, it's still on some of the maps. That was quite popular during the training prior to World War II or during World War II. I think the building may still be standing, but it was a bar, and it was well patronized by the GIs at that time.
Did that have anything to do with Armor Bordner or his family?
It was in the relation.
Okay. And where was that located?
Well, then you go north on 72 and head towards Inyaton Gap, and back in there it's on still a lot of the maps that are the old timers.
Okay.
This is all a book of borders.
Where did you get that book?
This book, Bordner and Bordner Families. This book goes back, my ancestors go back to 1454.
That's quite a crest, isn't it?
That's the coat of arms.
Wow. Where did you get the book?
The book was put together by this man right here, Howard W. Bordner. He traveled all over the United States accumulating all the data. This book is big. You name it, you can pick out any Bordner, and they're listed. The history of the Bordners,
Are you
when they
in
were
there?
born, their children.
Are you in there?
Oh yes, I helped to create part of it.
Really? That's pretty impressive.
It wasn't a great part, but it was at least a part of Jonestown, Fredericksburg, Lebanon, and so forth. Yeah, there's a little write-up in here about me, but that's okay.
What does it say about you?
No more than I helped to contribute to the making of the book.
The first one in the United States.
Baltzer, Bordner, 1698 to 1747-48. His descendants then would be listed on number generation 2. His children are all listed, and so forth. Generation 3, 4, 5. Armor was in 7.
So he's the seventh generation to live here. And
Yeah.
where did the Bordner family come from? What country?
It would have been somewhere it's listed in here, but from what I remember, some of them out of Switzerland, Germany. Most of the Bordners and so forth are eligible to belong to the French Huguenot Society. This will eventually wind up in the Historical Society. Now, most of the Bordners, my sons each have a copy of this, and I'm sure many of the Bordners who lived in the Fredericksburg, Jonestown area, if they were interested, have copies of it.
Okay, thank you so much.